obviously what we do is very, very relevant to aspiring barristers. But we also have a lot of solicitors and aspiring solicitors with us as well. So the question we got is learning how to moot relevant for an aspiring solicitor?
Okay, interesting question. The short answer, I would say, is yes. So I'll break it down like this. The first one is that some people who want to be solicitors want to be solicitor advocates. So naturally you can see why there is a need for somebody in that position who wants to be a solicitor advocate, or even a solicitor without higher rights of audience but conducting advocacy that's open to solicitors anyway. So magistrates court advocacy, civil advocacy, up to and including fast track trials. You can see why there's a natural importance there to learn advocacy. So that's the obvious answer for those who have an interest in advocacy. I would imagine where this question is going, and maybe the thinking behind the question, is for someone who's never going to practice in advocacy and is going to be a solicitor, whether that's litigation, non-litigation, etc., does that individual need to practice mooting? And once again, I would still encourage you to practice mooting. Firstly, think about the skills that that you need before you even get into the moot room. So if it's a traditional moot, unlike ours, where research and drafting is required, we need to think carefully about how you're going to formulate your argument. Where does the research start? So going on to Westlaw, going on to Lexis, searching for the cases that are relevant to your argument. You're looking at, if the argument's against you, looking at ways you can distinguish those arguments and looking at ways you can effectively overcome the law that's against you. So you're really buttressing your research skills there.
Yeah.
Once you've got that, you've then got to put that down onto paper. So you need to draft a skeleton argument. And that's quite a skill in and of itself, because you need to formulate a way that you can put your argument onto a few pieces of paper in its bare bones form, not obviously go over the top, not turn it into a speech, and put that down. And that's relevant because solicitors do, as you can probably attest, Hayley, an awful lot of drafting.
Yep.
And I think being concise is really important, because verbosity isn't helpful for you because it's time consuming, not helpful for the reader because if you're trying to give legal advice to your client, you need to give it in a way that's effectively user friendly, in a way that they can follow what's being said. It needs to be concise. So drafting is absolutely crucial. And if you draft well in terms of a skeleton argument, don't forget that your judges see that in advance, and that's a way for you to be persuasive to the judge before you even go into the moot room. Stand up and address the judge. And that's relevant for real life, because whenever you go to the Court of Appeal, you'll submit a skeleton argument beforehand, and if you've been persuasive on paper, the judge sees your argument and they're sort of on all fours with you already. That helps you when you go in and you're going to deliver your oral arguments. So you're building up two really good skills there in terms of your drafting and your research.
Yeah.
But it's also going to help you in terms of your study as well, because when it comes to sort of problem questions, or even the sort of analytical type questions that you might get as part of an exam, well, you've been able to think critically, because coming back to what I was saying about the research, you're thinking about the law, or how the law is going to apply to your argument from two sides. A, how the law is going to support you, but B, how you can look at the law that your opponent's going to cite and how you can knock that down, how you could distinguish the facts of the case, how you can say that the case law doesn't apply, or find better case law than that which your opponent will cite.
Yeah.
So you're developing your critical thinking skills there, which will, of course, help you when it comes to exams, but of course help you when it comes to practice as well, and when you're coming to apply the law. So I think that mooting is a really crucial skill, and it's important for everybody to try, whether you're interested ultimately in advocacy or not.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I can't think of any type of practice where analytical skills, research skills, drafting skills aren't needed.
Yeah.
Litigation is an obvious one because, it's contentious based. You need to be able to go back and forth with opponents and, solve problems for your clients. Even transactional ones, though. Transactional
work, you think about it. Even, let's take, for example, let's say you're a conveyancing solicitor. So that doesn't involve any litigation. I imagine doesn't involve any advocacy. But once again, those skills are really important because you need sort of that critical eye, because I imagine you spend a lot of time reviewing documents, sometimes very historic documents. If you're selling a property that's not been sold for many, many decades, sometimes there might be sort of tricky points that arise in relation to, and I'm just thinking about things that you've mentioned in the past, tree preservation orders or whatever it might be. So you still need to research the law there, look into that and apply that in those circumstances. Drafting is absolutely crucial as a conveyancer.
Yes.
So, I was thinking of an example there off the top of my head, which naturally isn't contentious, naturally doesn't lend itself to litigation. But of course, those same skills that you'd be picking up in mooting can be applied there.
And I mean, like, transactional real estate, when I was a trainee in that department, and it might not be contentious in the sense that, there's court proceedings, but believe me, things can get very, very heated when you're going back and forth over a 200-page lease. Yeah. And sometimes, there's one side wants something in there, one side really doesn't, and you go back and forth for months and months, and, that's a problem. You've got to think analytically about how do you get around that. Sometimes you have to go do researching on this particular clause and, how's it gone wrong, how's it been interpreted, etc. So all of these skills that you can build in mooting will be really, really valuable to you as a solicitor.
Oh, definitely.
And also, it just enhances your CV as well when you're applying for training contracts. If it is the solicitor route you want to go down, they can see that you've been mooting. That just shows that you're a rounded person. You've tried something else outside of studies. That just shows you've got a genuine interest in the law.